Welcome to Crown and Root Podcast. Hi, my name is Kelly, aka Darkstar, and I co create authentic branding and websites for spiritual entrepreneurs who want to feel empowered and grow their business. You can find me at darkstardesignstudio.com.
Hi, I'm Amy Sabatino. I'm a clairvoyant psychic medium. I offer spiritual services that provide clarity in a safe space for answering questions about the past, present, or future. To find out more, visit amysabatino.com. Kelly, this is the like epitome of like sit still and look pretty. And like everything in me is not okay with that right now. I feel like someone told me to be quiet and my mind's racing. I have like 100 things to say. Yes. No, I think we were rolling. That's okay. We don't need to worry. Now mute that and now let's go. Yes, we're rocking, we're rolling. Oh. Oh no, are you abandoning me, Kelly? Apparently you guys can only hear me and I guess I will start. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was actually, when we talk about the fool story, it's literally the progression, right? Of how we begin. The fool can even be seen as like the birth, right? The beginning. You're the innocence, you're the child. And as we progress, it's like we're learning these skills, literally becoming the magician. We learn to walk, we learn to talk. And so, like, when we talk about the major archetypes and how they come into our lives, it's very much like an onion. Because at the same time, the fool is new beginnings. It's exploration. It's kind of that sense of adventure in an optimistic kind of sense of view. You don't really know what you're going into, but you're excited to go, right? And so, like, it's a very much of an onion layer of how it kind of connects to where you are in your own life. And so for me, when I think about the fool's journey, I really think about like my own spiritual kind of like for me, it's actually like my own spiritual journey, but not in a sense of like my own spiritual sense of faith. I would say my own spiritual journey in the sense of like, in this case, what really comes to mind for me is like my intuitive development, right? And how I learned to trust myself. And so when I was younger, I had this like very much this innate kind of concept of what was around me and how I connected to it. And I didn't have all these programs, I didn't have all these things over me that were kind of be like, you should do this or you should pursue that. And so when I think about the fool's journey, I remember like how like right from the gate I used to dream. I had this amazing intuition, and then suddenly I got older and I had more responsibilities added on. And I remember at one point in my life I was like, well, I can do these things. These are certain things I can do, but I didn't understand them. I had them. At one point, I was like aware enough to go, okay, I have something going on here. I'm starting to connect to things. I'm seeing things. I'm calling things before they happen. I'm starting to really feel like there's a hidden picture behind things that I can kind of feel in like, but we don't talk about it, right? It's like the elephant in the room, because at this point in time, it was not a stage of where we're sharing this. This is more of my own self-discovery. And so when I think about the fool's journey in the sense of like the magician, I had these skills. I finally became aware of them. I even started to develop them. But it wasn't until like I got to college that I began to understand them. And when I say understand them, I mean more in like the like kind of religious sense. I started to look into world religions, became very like, like I wanted to find the one binding thing that connects everything, and really kind of understand how that works. And so it led me down quite a rabbit hole of many different experiences. But the knowledge from that really changed me into the card that we would connect to as the high priestess. Really kind of formed that energy of like trusting your intuition, but also understanding that intuition, while it comes from within, there is so much around. And so at that point, that was more of like the inner journey. And so when I talk about the fool's story, for me, it's like very much like, oh, well, that process, like there's a whole part of his journey that is really like, yes, he might be interacting with people, might be gaining these experiences, but there's like a whole chunk here where it's just him. And it's him in an individual sense, developing and growing. And it's not until we begin to, explore outwardly and begin to have certain like skills and knowledge and awareness that we can begin to share those things with others. And so, I don't know. So when I think about the full story, it's not just about like, oh, we live, we die. It's not just about being a child and growing into an adult. It's not just about, starting to learn something so that you can start the job of it and then you can become wise enough that you can begin to teach others about it, right? It's not just about that progression. For me, it very much is also a progression of self. And so whether you look at it in an external sense or an internal sense, I feel like there's just so much that you can gain from that. And I don't know, Kel, are you on now with us?
Yeah,
Are we?
I had not only muted myself on Zoom, but also muted my actual microphone. So
Oh,
I just forgot to
you
unmute my
didn't want to talk to
microphone.
me. I don't know what I did, but it's fine. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
We
no,
could have talked
no.
about this beforehand.
I know, right? No, but you're totally right, because the full story, like, kind of going off of what you said about the whole, it really is, how do I put it? Looking at it from, like, a creative writing perspective, or like an author's perspective or something like that, right? Is the
Oh,
fool
that's so fun.
is essentially like the protagonist of his story, right? Just like we are all the protagonists of our own life stories, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that. But what happens is there are times where the fool creates the progression of the plot, and there are times where things happen to him that create the progression of the plot, right? So, like, kind of depending on who he's talking to and, like, what is going on, it's like there are things either that he does, decisions he makes, or, things like that, or there are things that just happen and he has to respond or react to them. And that's, from kind of like the writing standpoint, it's so, I mean, it literally is a story, right? It has a plot, it has characters, it has the archetypes, it has, I mean, it's legitimately a story. And I think that's one of the reasons that, like, I think so many people can relate to it, right? Not only because obviously the major arcana cards are, the universal archetypes, but also because we can relate to it from different perspectives, whether that's from like a tarot reader's perspective, whether it's from like a fictional story reader's perspective, whether it's just from a life perspective. It's, we can, anyone can relate to this, no matter what stage they're in of their own life, no matter where they're coming from with it. I think it's such a universal story that I think it's incredibly important to share that and kind of be like, hey, look, we're not alone. Like, we all may be at different points in this story, but we're all in this story. We are all the fool of our life. We are all, at one point or another, I guess all the major
Some people never
arcana.
make that return trip, though. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly,
Like,
yeah. But I mean, like, think about like all the people that we meet throughout our lives and how, each person we meet, we could totally attribute them probably to one of the major arcana, right? Even if it's, a very generalized stereotype kind of thing.
Well, it's kind of like one of those things where people say, like, you should have these 5 core types of people in your friend group, and that's how you know you're well supported, blah, 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 right? Like, sorry, no offense, like, if everyone follows. I just mean, like, generalizing. But,
I have you, and I have, like, no, I have a lot of people in my life, but, like,
you do.
Yeah, I do.
Different structures, though, different needs.
Well, that's the thing, is, like, yeah, we do tend to, whether we consciously know it or not, surround ourselves with, like, different types of people. Even if we tend to attract, people who have a similar trait, they're all their own individual people. And it's very much the same thing with the Fool and his story, because, like, I bet you could find at least one trait to link all the major arcana cards. You know what I mean? Oh, you went horizontal. Yes. Hi, look at that.
Because you're horizontal, and I realized we are not on the same page, and I wanted to fix that.
Hi.
Hi. Does that work better?
Yes, I believe it does work better.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to tighten this, though, so I had to shift some things. I figured you can't change what you're on, but I can change what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I'm on my computer, so that is... I mean, I guess I could try to flip my whole computer, but I don't think that would work all that well.
No, it probably wouldn't.
No.
Hold on, but keep going.
I don't know. I lost my train of thought when you distracted me with the turning of the phone.
I was trying to be like all ninja about it, but you like
There's
totally
no
like
way you can be all
called me
ninja
out on
about
that. You were like,
turning your
Amy, you're doing
phone.
this, and I'm like, no, leave me alone. Let me do this. But no, seriously, like when you were talking about that, it's like there are like you literally can like situations or people.
Yeah.
You know, like so the magician can literally be work, right?
Mhm.
It can be someone skillful and resourceful, and it can also be someone who has like they have the tools that they need. They're surrounded by, you know, what they need to create and manifest. And
Right.
so I think I did that. Oh my
Looks
God, I
good.
feel like the camera's gonna pop out. I just working on my trust. We're working on it, you know. So I totally hear that. Okay. I think I got it. All right.
Looks great.
I feel like I'm gonna have a flying phone at my face in like 2 seconds, which is gonna like ricochet right at me
Just
because
don't
I'm
stare
not sure
too
how
hard
to
at
do
it.
that. But yeah, we're gonna trust right now, trust in the universe, right?
Exactly.
But like, no, seriously, like when we talk about like the passages and like kind of the journey, it's very much like on many levels. It's not just like your age, it's not just even yourself. It can be the people you surround yourself with, it can be your career, it can be all these different paths that kind of come together. And for me, like the way I like to see is like an energy of a moment. You know, like what is this energy that we're around? And we're not going to talk about exactly everything that goes into that, right? But like we are going to talk about like the sense of how, for me, like if I'm in a really productive space, if I feel like I'm really kind of like organized, I have my planner going, I'm starting to color code because when life's great, like bust out the markers, baby, right?
Mhm.
So like I'm in this space, I'm like doing my sheets, all my little to-do lists. And when I'm feeling good like that, I like, believe it or not, you would think I would feel like the empress, right? No, I feel like a boss, man. I feel like the emperor, right? I feel like everything is in control, everything is structured. And yes, that's a creative form. I like my colors, right? But like at the same time, it's really just so I can at a glance organize things. Like I don't have to read every bit to understand what category I'm looking at. And so it's a very structured energy for me.
Right.
And like when I feel like that, I feel like literally, okay, like the world's my oyster. Like the world's my, you know, like what am I gonna create with this? Like what am I gonna like move forward with this? And I feel like I'm able to. I have that reign over my domain, over my schedule, over my life that really puts me in that control energy. But at the same time, there's times where I run into that and I might meet somebody who, you know, brings out those energies, right? Who has those energies. And they could be super influential for me. And it could be kind of a thing where maybe they help me to bring structure in. Or maybe I adopt part of their structure. And so there's many ways where like we kind of can connect and operate and kind of see how they can impact you, you know? And so you had asked at one point, like, how did you word it? It was like, oh, what was the card when you were watching it? What was the card that, like, or the part that really connected for you in that moment?
Oh, about the actual, like, when we were watching the full story during the premiere?
Yeah.
I think right now, I think oddly enough, the Empress is kind of strong in my energy at the moment. And I think that's because this may not be how everyone sees the Empress, but for me, I fairly recently, it was probably like a month or so ago, I was about to go to bed, and I got this message that when I am world building for like a story or D&D campaign or whatever, when I'm literally creating a world and the people in it and the cultures in it and the plants in it and the animals in it and all that, like that is when I'm in my most divine feminine. And like for me that also correlates to, it is the Empress, right? Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No, you're straight.
Okay, yeah. I would just like second guess myself
I kind of give you
there.
a look, actually.
What?
I'd be like, look at you like, come on, we
I
know
know.
this. Yes, we do.
No, but like the Empress and how, you know, she's all like, the farmland and the cultivating and the crops and the growing and the just like mother nature essentially, you know, and that's kind of what it feels like to me when I'm world building is I'm literally like giving life to these fictional things. And so I've kind of been, I think, in that energy a little bit recently, just because I have been writing a lot more. And I think the other card that I think almost always resonates with me is probably the death card. Just the transitions, the, you know, endings of old, beginnings of new kind of thing. Especially with the Oracle deck that I'm working on in the background. Because there's a lot of that energy in there too. So there are just a lot of things I think that, you know, thinking about just the major arcana and the full story and those archetypes and how they are impacting me currently, I would say those two are probably the biggest. Unless they're, I don't, well, okay, what would you, as a tarot reader, who would you ascribe to be, like, the ultimate website designer in the major arcana?
Ooh, that's tricky because websites have to be used, right? So you have to utilize them. So the magician comes in, right?
Right.
Because they have to actually be user-friendly, usable.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you think about design, we have the Empress who's very, very creative. To be honest, though, I would skip the Empress. I jumped to Temperance because Temperance is moderator between two different forms to create something new. And so literally you're taking like maybe like pictures, documents, you know, things people have created, you're merging it onto a site that then other people can use, you know, from the outside. So it's kind of like a middle ground of mixing, if you will. So and I definitely feel like we have templates there. And then, you know, if it's gorgeous, which we all know you happen to do very gorgeous websites, if I do say so, then I would add the Wheel of Fortune, not Wheel of Fortune, sorry, the world altogether, the beauty of it all coming together, because that would be the completion of the website, right? So you make something beautiful through this kind of magician merging energy.
No, I like, and that actually feels really, I didn't even think about Temperance, but that feels very, very spot on, especially with how much balancing goes into website design. Like whether you're balancing colors, balancing fonts, balancing like image to text ratio, balancing, like there's so much like just flowing and balancing and moderation and just like combining all these different elements into a beautiful user-friendly thing, you know. No, that's a good one. So I would say then I would also add Temperance into my life currently.
Yes, Temperance, moderation, balance. Yes, we love it. Merging of opposites.
You had mentioned during your Facebook Live earlier today about how when you were younger you struggled to connect to the Temperance card. And I just want to say, like, I absolutely did. That was probably one of the hardest ones for me to actually understand when I was younger. And I think
I blame it on not having any balance. So I feel like that was all on me. You know?
Well, it's just one of those cards
more that, extreme level. You know?
It's just one of those cards that, like, I feel like when you're younger, the idea of balance isn't like a conscious thing you think about. You know what I mean? Like, I because being conscious of how we're balanced, what we're balancing, why we're being balanced, like all these things, it's like, because when you're younger you tend to just go with the flow more, which in itself can be a sense of balance. But it's also when we're younger, at least for me personally, like I don't remember ever, you know, stopping and going, oh, I feel like I'm out of balance right now. You know, that was never like a conscious, you might have had it, but I didn't.
But no, I didn't have it. That was the problem. Like, if I think I had that thought, I think like I would have maybe like adjusted accordingly. I did not have that thought. You know, that was kind of the issue.
But it's so funny that, like, you know, you and I talk a lot about how we are opposites in a lot of ways, and I feel like even our like childhood out of balance was opposite, right? Like, I feel like you were more of the going out with people, socializing, you know, having fun, and probably neglecting like some studies or, you know, chores or whatever, whereas I was like, I just want to stay home and lock myself in my room and either study like crazy or, you know, I don't know, write or whatever, music, things like that. And like, so even in that aspect, you know, what you and I kind of experienced as being out of balance, totally different for us. And yet, we still had a similar struggle of connecting with the temperance card, right? Because neither one of us really
Yeah.
understood it as well as I think we can now.
It was like a foreign language at the time. I'm like, okay, we're gonna blend what and what, and like, and like at the time it was like merging of opposites, and the closest I could come to was like man and woman, right?
Right.
And like create a child. I was like, okay, that's merging of opposites into a unified third. Check.
Mm-hmm.
But like it wasn't until I came across the full story that like I was able to really kind of understand it, because essentially like when you think of merging opposites, it's hard to apply that on a smaller scale.
Right.
Like no one's most people aren't having babies every day. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like we're more like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Unified thirds aren't always popping up everywhere, right? So it's kind of coming out like, how do you see that in your life? How do you see that in a way that you can actually like understanding on a day-to-day energy?
Yeah, because
that was where it was so hard to like find that balance in itself.
Because like even the card in the full story, isn't she balancing fire and water? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know if you've ever tried to like have a candle and some water, but it, you know, they don't mix well as when we're human, you know. So like even that kind of like, I know that was literally one of the things that I like thought or tried to think of when I was struggling with the temperance card, was like, oh, she's mixing fire and water. Like I sort of get that, but like my literal brain could not understand it, because I was like, but you, like, I physically don't know how to do that. Therefore, that is not something that I can connect with, you know?
Well, to me, it's like, it's kind of that concept of like traveling for business and pleasure, right? It's like traveling to learn, but also to spend time alone, you know, to engage in community, but also to isolate away from everything that's bothering you, right? It's the idea of, you know, basically having a routine and having not just the flexibility with it, but the understanding of like, okay, work and play, you know, family time and personal time and things like that. And so like when you can start to see it as like a regular energy rather than just a miracle of like creation in the sense that like the angel brings, you know, I think it really does start to make more sense. And especially the one way I love look at it is like emotions. Like, it's like, I can be angry. Sure, I can be so angry, but do I have to act angrily? And that kind of like balance between the two. Like, so when I started to like really dig into temperance, I was like, oh, on an emotional level, that really connects to me. Because it's not saying you can't have that energy. It's not saying, no, never be angry. No, never hold that, right? It says, okay, you have this. We're trying to get to here. Like, how do we blend this out so that we're able to still react and respond in an appropriate way, right? And so for me, like on an emotional level, I could understand it so much more easily than on a physical, material kind of idea of an actual like physical object, essentially.
No, that makes complete sense. And I think that if I'd had that explanation, you know, when I was struggling with the card, I think that would have helped immensely. Because, yeah, like, all of our emotions are valid and real. Like, we all experience emotions. But it's how we decide to respond or react to those emotions that kind of can make us feel, you know, balanced or unbalanced or aligned or unaligned kind of with who we are. And no, so I think that actually really is kind of the perfect example, because it is, I agree, it's a lot easier to kind of conceptualize it when talking about emotions rather than like literally combining fire and water, or like, you know, Just saying.
So they have the videos where you put the candle in the water and
Yeah,
you put a little
yeah, that's
glass
true.
there, and you're
Yeah,
like water,
something like
fire,
that. Yeah,
air. We have another element there, trapped air, but that's fine,
exactly.
you know. But no, honestly, but that's another way you can even look at the full story. It's like, so I chose to look at it or start this discussion on the sense of like spiritual development, right? But like you can literally look at it as emotional development too. You know, how we start with experiences. If you've ever had a new feeling for the first time, you know, like things like that, and how it grows, how you develop, how you manage to balance it out, how you learn how to, like, especially if someone's ever struggled with like any mental anxiety, depression, bipolarness, any of those things too, as well. You literally see those kind of journey between balance and unbalance, and when you start to look at the extremes of things and how, like, literally the full journeys through it all from beginning to end.
Right.
So you know what I mean? And so, like, no matter which perspective you wish to take on it, whether it's like career, socially, or spiritually, or even like emotionally, right? Like it brings in all these kind of conversations about where we are and where we feel, you know, like kind of like the things that, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, what's next after this? Or how do I get through this and what do I do after this? Or what did I even just experience? You know, it really gives you a good way to compartmentalize, I guess.
Right.
And kind of analytically kind of step back and say, okay, I can see, you know what, these are universal experiences. I have my own, others have theirs, and it might help with how you connect to others too. So I don't know, that's like one of the things. So like I really do feel like when I started to dive into this stuff, like it really made me look at like kind of like even how faith works, our own spiritual paths with faith, and how we connect to our identities and concepts of faith. And I think at the end of it all, you know, when we come to like the full circle of it all, right? At the end, it's basically like you are all these things. You are all your experiences. You are all your thoughts. And they all play a major role into, you know, the world that you decide to create and manifest for yourself. And so, like, one of the secret things I love to do with like the full story is like use it for manifestation, like use it for visualization, you know, because like there's always that point where you're like, this is a great idea, but like that, I don't even know how that could exist here in this reality, right? And like you struggle to even like accept that energy, right? And so when you start to think about like how you can begin to, you know, we like for us to even begin to go in the direction that often is in our highest and best, we have to at least be like have this sense of a pull. And so the pull is that like innocent pull where it's not like, I think this is a great idea, my friend told me it's a great idea, you know what, my career naturally aligns me in this great idea. It's like, no, it's like you literally feel pulled to it. It's just like, oh, I'm going on this journey, I'm going to start this, I have no idea where I'm going or why, but this is what I'm drawn to. And then from there learning how to explore that even on a further level.
Yeah, absolutely. But turning the question to you, because I think we only talked about like what I was resonating with, and then we just went into temperance. So what card or cards are you resonating with currently?
Not temperance. Not currently. We're gonna sashay that over there for now. Let's see. What card do I connect with currently? Oh, you know what? I know what card I connect with currently, but it doesn't actually make sense energetically yet. So I feel like this possibly is coming in my future. It's
Let me
actually
guess.
the.
Can I? Oh,
What were you gonna guess?
you
I
were
know
gonna
it
say
wasn't that one.
Chariot, so never mind. I was actually gonna guess the Lovers.
The Lovers?
Yeah,
Oh,
not
okay.
necessarily for romantic, although you know who knows.
Okay.
But
All right. Thanks.
sorry, I'm just saying.
She's
No,
like,
but I think
no,
it's possible.
I'm
But
sorry.
it's more for me. I think the like meeting of new people and like the combining of energy of people rather than specifically like the romantic or like it, because it's still intimate, right? Whenever you like feel like you connect with someone, that can be very intimate, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like sexual or romantic or anything like that.
No, that's true. That's very true.
So that's what I was
Absolutely.
Say. But so you say
But
the
no,
Chariot.
I was gonna say the Chariot, yeah. Because I definitely feel like my path is laid before me. And I feel like I can see the road. And I feel like it's a matter of speed. Like I'm gonna get there. Okay. I'm going there. We're going there. It's gonna happen. But like at the same time, it's like how fast and how driven it's not a matter of where am I going. I have my direction. It's rather like how much will do I put into it to accelerate and kind of dash forward in that sense toward that. And I feel very, I mean, it could be because I had like, someone awesome make me a brand new website and I'm feeling quite empowered. Maybe that's the next step, that empowerment, right? Strength coming in.
Yes.
But like at the same time, no, I definitely feel that, yeah, the chariot. And I feel like because I have the direction, it's not, there's times I could feel overwhelmed, right? Like the chariot's all about like go into battle, right? To be victorious, you got to keep moving forward, right? Keep that momentum, And so like for me, it's like, it's more about like the stamina and the will and like just like endurance to keep pushing forward rather than like, what am I doing,
Right.
And so for me, I think, with the few projects I have coming forward for the rest of this year, I think that it's more about like how fast can I create them or push them out there.
Right.
And I'm kind of excited about that actually, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of the questions are answered at this point. And I feel like it's more about just like keep going, walking that path. And then the other card that I don't know if I want to connect with this card, but like I'm not sure I have so much of a option right now, is the Wheel of Fortune.
Okay.
Pretty much like a game of Jeopardy right now, where we're gonna spin the wheel and see where it lands. And so, when I think about things like that, it's very much like more up in like God's hands, right? More fated for me. It's more like, what does the universe have in store? What is the universe's greater plan? What is God's greater plan?
Right.
It's like what's the saying? It's like of mice and men, right? Like the plans of mice and men, right? And so it comes across as like I do think there's some there's some things that are going to be changing coming forward, and I don't know that all of the things that change are always going to be because I put my hand on the button and hit play, right? So,
Right.
I think some of that is just like the turn of the wheel, just like the Wheel of Fortune. So I really kind of connect with, I'm hoping it's on the upswing. So it's more like, all good luck this day is here, kind of energy. That would be fantastic. But at the same time, I definitely feel like there's things that are happening that are, more external. And it's, the world we live in, how things change, the developments that are coming and going to be taking place. So there's a lot of shifts, and I think that's also going to play a part into, kind of like at this point going with the flow.
Right.
There is definitely this energy of like, if I wanted to resist everything I wanted to resist, we know that there would be 1,000 things I didn't do, right? So at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm just going to kind of go with the flow, take things in stride. And I really feel that energy. Like we had technical difficulties. I could have been like, oh, well, that's God's way of saying we're done today. Sorry, everyone, right? Like I could have, right? But no, we didn't, And so like, that's kind of going with the flow, morphing with the energy. And so I'm kind of open to the next chapter of my life, and I don't know necessarily like while I have my path laid out for me, who I meet on that path, what I encounter on that path. Those kind of things feel very, very open. And, I think they are going to be very positive as well. So I'm kind of ready for that next chapter and seeing how, good card of luck, right?
Yes.
So.
And I for one, I mean, I'm also incredibly excited to see kind of what is next for you. I feel like this website has been
a journey on its own.
I feel like we went through the whole Fool story just with the website. Like, I feel like we could honestly analyze it and be like, oh, this card represents when this happened. The tower represents when Wix totally crashed and wouldn't let me do anything. But I mean, that's the thing too, right? Is like, the Fool story doesn't have to be, like you were saying, it can be a situation, but that situation can be the whole Fool story,
Yes.
I feel like that's a little bit more rare, but like, it definitely can be.
Well, from
But
start to beginning to end, like we did probably go through every
yeah,
single part of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. At one point you were so on your own. I was like, I don't know what your vision is. I feel like I can trust you. I feel like you're gonna do a great job, but I'm gonna just have to say, follow your heart, you know?
Yeah,
Sounds good, couldn't
exactly.
quite see. And so like, at certain points, like I would say the whole project in its own concept was the fool's story. It
Hmm.
absolutely was.
Yeah.
And well, we know how that ended.
Yeah.
So
Exactly, yes. But no, but I
very
do think
beautiful. Love it.
since the
And
website
thank you.
is done, like I am so excited to see what's next for you. You know, like obviously I know a few things that you have planned, but I agree with you in that, when thinking about kind of from my perspective and what I already know that you're thinking about, I do get the feeling that there are going to be other things coming in or other people or whatever that, neither one of us has really thought of yet. And that to
No,
me is
we're
very
just trying to get
exciting.
through that journey
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
first.
we
So
were very focused on the website, blocked everything else out, had the blinders on, like. But no, but I think with the website done, with your retelling of or how did you word it, revision of the full story,
yes.
um, like those two things. I think the full story is something that you've wanted to do or redo for a long time, whereas the website was something I wanted you to redo for a long
This is
time.
true. This is true. So yes. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, we both kind of we have what we want, and we both got what we want. But no,
It's
I think that these two projects just on their own, I think hold a massive amount of energy and weight and like power to them, right? And
yes.
they
Definitely empowering like the
oh yeah.
experiences, so I definitely feel like so much better, though I'm not gonna lie, now that it's complete.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm ready to start every next project. I don't know if like I said, I feel like the wheel is just with me right now, so I'm gonna say I don't know if I have a choice about how
Right,
every next
yeah.
project starts. I feel like it's just in the ball's gonna keep rolling, but yeah, no, I definitely feel like it is like now coming to like a new chapter and
Mhm.
kind of moving forward in that direction. And,
Absolutely.
I think at this point in time, at this age, I'm like, yes, you know what? I am ready for that next new chapter, that next kind of explorative adventure. And so, like, I
Right.
guess, like, to wrap up this like fool's journey, I really do hope that like everyone kind of like at least like if you aren't in a place where you feel like you're starting a new project or anything new is coming, that's okay. But I hope at least you can start to see the world with like a little bit more of an optimistic view.
Mhm.
Because I think that is the beauty of the fool. Even when he
Yeah.
comes back as the wizened fool, which is at the end when he returns back to its original place. Like he starts the journey again, but he still has his old experiences with him.
Right.
But with that, there's this perspective of like, I'm still going to be excited. And I'm
Mhm.
still going to embrace it with a new energy so that, I can really be present in the moment. Like one of the cards that's the most present to me is the fool. He has nowhere else to be. He doesn't know
Right.
better to be anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
Like, so all he can be is in that moment. And
Mhm.
so I really hope that, everyone can find something that kind of gives them that pull, that in the moment feeling, that optimism, that kind of happiness that comes from not being stressed, not being worried. And I don't care if it's just like, oh, you're walking by the street and you see a flower pop up where it wasn't before, and you're like, oh my God, what a beautiful flower. And you
Yeah.
take a moment to appreciate. Like it can be the simplest things to the biggest things, but I hope that, everyone has a little bit of that.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's always been the fool has always, to me, kind of felt like he looks at the world with like that childlike wonder. You know what
Oh
I
my
mean?
God,
Like
yes.
that innocence, that just like everything is new and amazing, and just you know, like you said, being very very present, and like that's all he can do. And so in being present, he's able to like look at something because for him it's brand new and be like, oh my God, that's amazing, or
Yes,
like,
yeah.
this is so cool. And I've kind of always loved that because obviously when a lot of people think of fools in general, not necessarily the card, but like a fool, it's usually more of that, like, you know, oh, they're naive, or they're, not paying
Well, he is
attention,
naive
oblivious.
until he comes back, anyways.
Right. And he is, but he also, I feel like the fool card or archetype has a little bit more, like, joy to him than,
Yes.
like, I don't know.
Well, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
You know,
well, that's
too,
for
so-
true, yeah. Yeah, there are definitely, I think we kind of all have those moments where we're like, oh, wish I could unlearn that now. You know? But can't do that.
No,
But
I
so
don't
we-
know. Whatever what you talk of. No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, I am so proud of you, and I am so happy for you, and I am so excited to see what is next for you, because I know it will be absolutely amazing, and yeah, I can't wait.
Well, likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise on that, because big things coming, and I
Mhm.
love it. And I think that, I think this has been, like, if we were to look at things as in the full story, as in chapters of our lives, and each chapter is its own full story, I think that, especially over the past few years alone, everyone had a lot of learning curves, as I like to put it. And we all had to become the fool, even if we thought we knew so many things, and how we had
Right.
to change our routines, our habits, and, transition, especially with everything that happened. So, I think that, it kind of reminds you, like, you're never too old to learn, you're never too old to grow. And,
Mhm.
even as things shift around you, you can also shift with them too, if
Right.
you wish. And so, I hope that, I hope everyone found a little inspiration today
Yes.
and enjoyed that. And as always, I love connecting with you and connecting with everyone. So,
Same.
I want to say thank you, everyone, for watching, and go and love and light,
And my dogs are
Exactly.
marking. I don't know if you can hear, but my dogs just started barking. They're like, "Get off the computer, Mom. I haven't seen you in an hour." But no, on a serious note, absolutely, I totally, ditto what you said. Like, I am so glad that we decided to do this live podcast too.
Oh yeah, this is a
once
first.
once we got past the technical difficulties, I think it's been really wonderful to just kind of be able to see each other and connect visually and verbally, and also be able to connect with whoever's watching. And I think that it has been I actually have had a really pleasant experience with this. So yay.
Thank you. Oh my
Yay.
God.
Thank you everyone so much. I will put a link to Amy's full story video in the description. And so give it a watch and, see how it resonates with you. So thank you everyone. Bye.